Hey, it's Dave Rettelberger here from the Schottenstein Center and Nationwide Arena. Time for our weekly check-in with Gary, the Arena Guy. Arena Guy, how's it going?
It's going great, Dave. How are you doing?
As good as any of us are doing these days. Dude, I
Yeah.
love. First, I just got to say, I love the ELO shirt, man. That was what a
Oh,
night that
thanks.
was.
Oh, wasn't it awesome? I mean, I think we thought it was going to be good, but it was just so much better. It really exceeded expectations, and it was one of those concerts that we're still talking about.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was definitely one of those nights that, it started off good, and I stuck around for the whole show, and like it was just
I know.
Jeff Lynne is not the most dynamic showman, right? But boy, musically and it was a fabulous night. It was one of my favorite shows of the year.
It was about the music. It wasn't about the pyro
Yeah.
or dancers or all that other stuff that some shows have and do very well, but they were all about the music, and it just was awesome.
Well, speaking about all about the music, we are today going to talk about our top five live albums of all time. But before we get to that, a quick news update, from the Schottenstein Center side of things, where, the big news of the week here was from our friends at WWE, who, been doing some interesting
Yeah.
stuff without any crowds, right? Still continuing their
Right.
programming from the WWE headquarters and stuff. But, we had I want to make sure I get these details right. So, WWE Friday Night SmackDown was scheduled to take place April 10th. Of course, that got
Yes.
rescheduled to June 12th at the shot, and now it's been moved to a Monday Night Raw. So that's going to be December 28th. If you have tickets for either of the previous dates, they will be honored for the rescheduled dates, same exact seat location. And if you do want a refund, those options are available at schottensteincenter.com. You can get all those details. But it's kind of a cool thing for us to be able to do that, as obviously so much of everything's up in the air. But, we're working with our friends at WWE. They love coming to Columbus. And that's kind of a cool thing for fans to be able to get to come to one of the shows. And I know that when it does get here, the fans will be very excited.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's a high energy level anyway, but can you imagine when we do the first shows, whether it
Oh,
be WWE or anything really?
yeah, the WWE crowd is a lot of fun. And one of the things that we get to see, kind of that backstage peek, is, those guys from WWE, they take over every corner of the backstage, really using every room and setting up all these interview spaces. And it's so cool to see what a production it is.
Yeah, especially when it's a TV broadcast,
Right.
and to see like you say all that stuff, and then they've got studios and TV studio equipment everywhere,
Yeah.
and you really have to watch where you step because there's wires and cords and
And
everything.
wrestlers
It's very
everywhere.
cool.
Because
Oh yeah, they're just all over the place.
when we go to dinner, right, they always, by the way, WWE, props to them, always brings the best food, right, for backstage, because they're feeding those big guys.
Yeah, lots of carbs.
Yes, lots of carbs.
Lots of carbs. And we generally eat the same food that they do, and yeah, top notch.
Yeah, so you're standing in line next to these gigantic guys, and they get
Yeah,
first dibs. They get first dibs at the steaks. But when you talk about food in WWE, I have to think about that event we had. I think might have been actually on 4th of July a couple years back, where we
oh
had
yes.
WWE, and they had a big. This was as part of the show, of course, a big backstage
Yeah,
cookout kind of thing. Like it was like a picnic kind of thing, and we got, of course, it erupted into a food fight.
of course.
It
I've
actually
never seen such a mess in my life.
It was insane, and I'm telling you, you know this, but we were cleaning mustard. You would never get. We just repainted this backstage room. It was beautiful. We were cleaning mustard out of the walls. You would never know how much mustard gets into paint unless WWE has held a food
We
fight.
filled some of the crevices between things. Yeah, so it actually worked out pretty well. But
It was.
it was great for TV. It was a great visual. But afterwards, man, they did a really good job, didn't they?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun for sure. Hey, speaking of fun, we talked about it last week a little bit, but one of the great things of music of days gone by is live albums. Are live albums as big of a thing as they used to be? Do you think?
I don't know. I think with everything being digital, a lot of artists are releasing more of their shows instead of doing one live album every few years. You could almost some artists like Springsteen and the Dead and others. You can probably get every show. Elton John did it for a while. I don't know if he still does actually.
Yeah,
but
Bon Jovi
you
did it too
could
for a little bit.
download the exact show that you were at. So that was really cool. It used to be a big deal when a live album came out, and it's kind of a novelty, really. It was kind of not really, except in a few cases, as big as a studio album. And sometimes they were to fulfill a contractual obligation with the record label, a greatest hits, a compilation, or a live album. But there are several that stand out, and we're going to talk about some of those today.
Well, and in those pre-YouTube days, right? Getting that time with your favorite artist was rare, right? So that feeling of when you kind of go to your bedroom or whatever it was, and you'd put on your favorite live album and just kind of like lay back and listen to it like you were at the show, it really transported you. And you know what? In these uncertain times, Arena Guy, being transported to that live music experience is such an incredible feeling when you can kind of just get a little bit of that. So I thought we'd take some time today to share our top 5 live albums. But now here, 2 ground rules: only one album per artist, right, for each of us. So that means
seriously, I'm gonna have to do my whole list.
Your list couldn't be
I
5.
have to cut 4 off my list.
And then no bootlegs, right? So no bootlegs. These are all things that people could pull up on Spotify, and that's a whole nother conversation for another day of awesome live bootlegs.
Yeah.
But,
I'm not going to break one of the rules, but there's a little bit of a twist on one of those rules.
Right. Fair enough. Why don't you go ahead and start us off?
All right, number 5. We'll go from 5 to 1. We'll go back and forth. I think the Rolling Stones are one of the great live acts. They have done 28 live albums. They've had 30 studio albums, 28 live albums. So they come out with live albums all the time. So to choose the right one or the best was really difficult. But one that I listened to a lot when I was in college was an album called Still Life.
Oh, okay.
And 12 tracks. It was not the whole concert. It did have a hit single, a cover of Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, Going to a Go-Go was a hit off that. And that's called Still Life. And it's from the 1981 tour. And that is my number 5.
That Stones have some
great live.
It's a tough pick, man, on which album. Ya-Ya is Get Your Ya-Ya's Out is a great one, but also just they have one, I think it was called 40 Licks, which was just like 40 different live cuts, which kind of captures what so many of the hits. But it's a great little sampling of what the Stones sound like today. But yeah, great choice to start us off with.
Yeah. So some of mine are affected by what I actually listened to a lot when it initially came out. And so Still Life was one of those.
My number 5 is going to go to Aretha Franklin.
Okay. Wow.
She has a great Live at the Fillmore West album. And there are a couple of live albums you can check out on Spotify. But, Aretha being the legend that she is, and she a concert diva, right? Just a true maybe one of the best divas out there. But when she was live, especially in those early days, there was such a power to her voice, and like her version of Eleanor Rigby that she does on this album, just absolutely killer. Definitely any music fan should check out some of that early live Aretha stuff.
Yeah, she's really great. She's such a diva that she actually had costume changes during her funeral and memorial services. That's how much of a diva she is.
Hey, she would totally approve of that. She would totally approve of that. What's your number 4?
Probably dictated it. My number 4 is one of the best-selling albums of all time. And I listened to this a lot. Like I said, a lot of live albums were kind of novelties, but I listened to this album like it was the latest studio release, and that's Frampton Comes Alive.
Okay.
So it's a double album, had 3 hit singles off of it. 2 were singles before that didn't do anything. Show Me the Way and Baby I Love Your Way. They were from a previous album. Didn't really do anything. And then Do You Feel Like I Do was a concert favorite, kind of a jam song, which it is obviously on the live album as well. And that was a first-time hit. So 3 huge hits there. I really connected with this album. I became a huge Frampton fan from this album. I wanted to see him on his farewell tour last year, and I did not get the chance, and I regret it. Yeah, and with us not presenting live concerts or being able to go to live concerts right now, been listening to a lot of live albums, and I actually listened to Frampton Comes Alive last week, and it's just so good. It's really good.
I remember my mom buying me that album just based on reputation alone.
Your mom, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I mean, you know, it was she was hip, she was cool, but she bought it for me.
Yeah.
Is what so it was.
Okay, good.
It's a great album and a lot of fun. And I only Frampton. I don't know. Does he do much solo touring now? I know I saw him with Ringo.
Well, yeah, he did a farewell tour last year,
Okay.
and he's got some medical condition right now, so he is retiring from touring. Like Elton John, when he's done with this farewell Yellow Brick Road tour, he says he still may perform here and there. Frampton still might perform here and there, but as far as tours go, he just completed it a few months ago.
I would love to get. Yeah, I know, right? Would love to have seen that. My number 4, I'm going to go with the band. Right? It's actually the band, and they did it's the Last Waltz.
Wow.
The Last Waltz, right? This, in fact,
yeah, the classic.
I saw the movie first, but then I actually got the box set, which was there's a like a 4-disc version of it, and again, it just transports you to a certain room at a certain time, and you're there for that concert, and it's a
lineup.
It's an amazing lineup. I mean, everybody from obviously Bob Dylan joining in to surprise appearance from Neil Diamond.
Yeah. Which is interesting how he fit into that crowd at one time.
Yeah, right. Times changed.
But no, that's a great album, and that's a classic and a classic live concert movie as well.
Which is a conversation for another day, by the way. I do want to talk about great concert movies too.
Okay, well, I've got plenty. We can do that off the top of our heads. Are we on to number 3?
Number 3.
This is one that I listen to a lot myself, and again, this is from somebody that has a bunch of live albums now, and it's a triple album, and I think we're dating ourselves too by calling these albums, but this was a triple album, and it was really tough to choose because I also like another one. I think it's called Goodbye New York City or something like that. But anyway, Paul McCartney, Wings. That was the band that actually came after the Beatles. Wings Over America, triple album. Maybe I'm Amazed, which was a song from his first, one of his first solo albums, actually became a hit off this. And it's the first time that he pretty much played Beatles songs in his shows. And he did 5 Beatles songs. But funny thing is, you know how they did write together, Lennon and McCartney wrote together initially in the beginning. And then later on, McCartney wrote a song and Lennon wrote a song, but they would have the Lennon-McCartney credits on there, regardless of who wrote it. McCartney on this one got in a little trouble with Yoko because and Lennon because he changed the credits to McCartney-Lennon on the 5.
I remember
McCartney
that, yes.
That he wrote, Long and Winding Road, Let It Be, Hey Jude. And so he changed it to McCartney-Lennon on this album and got into a little hot water, but they resolved their differences. But Wings Over America is a great live album, and some of the later McCartney live albums are great too, but I really like Wings Over America. Triple album, by the way.
You know, and it is a great album. It's an awesome pick, and there's so many great McCartney live albums. Tripping the Fantastic is one of my favorites.
That's another. I know.
So there's so many great choice. My number 3 I'm going to give to Sam Cooke. Okay, so I'm pulling a lot from
Listen
the classics,
to you
right?
going back. Usually I'm the one that goes back in time.
I know.
Okay.
Call me grandpa on this list, but live from the Harlem Square Club. Right. Again, it's that thing where you listen to that album and you are just taken into that room for that classic. Sam Cooke, just an amazing, smooth soul singer, right? But live, especially at the Harlem Square Club, he kind of had a different kind of edge to him, and it's just it's a magical live album. Definitely recommend it.
So tell me the truth. Have you really listened to that album?
Oh, all the time. It's in heavy rotation for me. Yes.
Yeah, I know. It's awesome. It's great.
I'm a big classic soul fan.
Okay.
I don't know if you knew that.
Guy.
Yeah.
I know you're a soulful guy. All right, on to number 2. This one, a lot of people might roll their eyes at, but I truly think it's one of the best live albums ever. Obviously, I put it at number 2. This is an album that came from a live TV special, and it was the first live concert broadcast around the world. It was really, I credit this concert, And that TV broadcast and then the album, which I ended up buying, it's a 2-record set. I remember asking my mom and dad, I was very, very young, if I could watch it. I was mesmerized in front of the television. I got chills, emotional. You know how when you really connect with the artist, you actually get emotional sometimes. And I credit this TV special and album in getting my interest, originating my interest in music in general. And that is Elvis Presley, Aloha from Hawaii. And it was 5 times platinum. They estimated about 1 billion viewers from around the world. And it just was incredible. And it just did something to me that got me so interested in music. And then going back to early Elvis, which early Elvis is actually, I think, the best. And it just was really great. So it mesmerized me, gave me chills. It finished slightly above the 1968 NBC comeback special, since we only can do an album. But that comeback special was phenomenal with the capital PH. And so that didn't quite make the list. But this one, because it affected me so much personally, I chose as my number 2.
It's funny that you mentioned the comeback special because, first of all, you don't know this, maybe I'm a huge Elvis. I'm an Elvis '70s fan. I like '70s Elvis, and I actually have.
I like '70s Elvis too.
I probably have.
But the early Elvis was when he really helped change the course of rock and roll, and he was one of the originators. And some of those raw recordings were just so pure and so awesome. '70s Elvis, that's where he just had incredible charisma and the jumpsuits and the crowd. It's just, that was a whole different era. He was like 2 different stars.
It really was. And, I actually have a huge collection of bootleg Vegas recordings of the 2 a.m. show in Arena, right? Or whatever it is. But the comeback special was on my list. And I took it off because I was like, I don't know if that's a concert or a TV special. I couldn't decide.
I know.
But Aloha is a great choice as well. So very, very well.
Well, you said when we talked in planning this, you said live albums. Yeah. So with the studio audience, I considered that live. Just Fair enough. You know.
Yeah, I like that.
I have to about that because it kind of relates to my number 1 pick. But go ahead. What's your number?
my number 2 is going to be James Brown. There's a great. Live at the Apollo, is the very popular one, but I have a preference for. There's one called "Say It Live and Loud," that just to me, he's a few years further down the road, and I love all the Live at the Apollo albums, but "Say It Live and Loud" is just like he is at peak funk James Brown. So he's kind of just taken a little more into the extended funk jams kind of thing, and James Brown again, one of those artists that on an album, there are some artists that are great on recording, but on a live album is where concert is where they really come to life. And he was one of those. And just great live music.
Totally agree. You're right. He's definitely better live than studio. Studio's not bad, but something happens when he performs live. To me, a little bit of James Brown goes a long way. It kind of starts the same. I shouldn't say that on this forum, but I like him, and that Apollo album is the one that the critics usually name as one of the best. So I like you kind of veered off the beaten path a little bit.
Thank you much. All right, so here it is. Arena Guys,
all right.
Number one.
All right, this one was originally a radio broadcast. You're laughing because if you don't know the album, you know who it is.
Yeah.
It was originally a radio broadcast in 1970, November 17th, 1970. The radio show was it was this phenomenon from England who came over to the United States. So he appeared in this New York radio station, did this concert with his trio. He was part of a trio, Dee Murray on bass and Nigel Olsson on drums. And this is pure rock and roll. It's kind of like the early Elvis stuff I was talking about. If you want really pure, the beginnings of true rock before an artist gets polished, and sometimes our favorite artists do get kind of polished. But this was a radio broadcast that was so popular and so bootlegged that MCA Records or Uni Records had to release it officially. And they called it 17/11/70 because that's in England how they do the date. And of course, it's Elton John, 17/11/70. And you need to get the original version only had like 8 tracks, but there's a long medley of Burn Down the Mission and Get Back and My Baby Left Me, an Elvis song. And it's just really, really just rocks. But the version that came out a few years ago includes the entire show, the entire concert, which includes your song and some other things. So that's the version you should get to get the true feel of what happened that night. But it was one of the most bootlegged performances ever. And the record company finally said, we're losing money. We've got to put this out. So there you go.
Hey, no argument for me on that one, right? That actually would have been in my top 5 had I not known that it was going to be in yours. It is. I listened to that album. Probably it's one of the most frequently listened to live albums. I absolutely love that one.
He does a cool version of Honky Tonk Women too.
Yeah, it's just the opening chords to that when he first launches into it, right? Go look that one up. If you only pick out one song to listen to out of all our recommendations today, the Elton John Honky Tonk Women from that album is just beautiful. My number 1 is not Prince. You might have thought that. I don't think.
Are you serious?
I don't think there's been a great live Prince album that's captured him yet. There's a few bootlegs, but that's a discussion for another day. My number 1 is almost a cliche choice in some counts and controversial by some other folks, but it's the Springsteen Live 75 to 85 box set.
Oh, well, yeah, I can't argue with you there. That is so good.
So for so many years, Springsteen was a legend live, right? But you only had availability to it for bootlegs, and as growing up in a small town, there were no record shows that came through town, so it was hard to get your hands on that stuff, and so few TV appearances. So when this box set was released, it was a 5 albums, right? And it actually, took stuff from many different shows and put it together, but you were able to kind of put it on and feel what it was like to be at one of those marathon Springsteen concerts. There are better albums, better live concerts from him that have been recorded, including a great live album they released nationally that was recorded at the Shot for one of his acoustic tours, which is a great album. But the live from 75 to 85 is the one that made me a fan, and just again, it just kind of brought you into being in that arena at that concert with the boss, and turned me into a lifelong fan of Springsteen.
And he did some live songs, didn't he, that he had written for other people or other people made famous?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So,
Jersey Girl was the one, the Tom Waits classic that he covered from that, which he just recently redid for one of the benefit concerts. So that was pretty cool. All right, honorable mentions. What almost made your list? Give me a quick rundown.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I really like the Garth Brooks live album. I have to say, he's one of the greatest live performers out there. His live album, which is probably a CD, I don't know if it's out on album, is really fantastic. I even thought of people like Neil Diamond live at the Greek. Is it Love at the Greek or Live at the Greek?
Hot August Night, right?
Oh, Hot August Night he's got a couple of those, but the original one was great, and that was a TV special, which was fantastic. Then you just start thinking, one that I really wanted to put on my list was the Beatles live at the Hollywood Bowl, which came out long after they broke up, and was reissued after the Ron Howard movie came out a couple years ago, which you and I both saw and loved. But with the Beatles being the first stadium show act ever, that was cool. The only reason I didn't put it on, as my voice cracks, is you can actually hear them singing. And my thought was, the reason they quit touring is because John, Paul, George, and Ringo could not hear themselves sing over the crowds, the screaming crowds, and they couldn't hear themselves, and they didn't feel like their music was really appreciated. And so I didn't put that on for that reason, but that is a great album too. So those are a couple of my near misses, and gosh, there are a bunch of others too.
Yeah, I had, obviously the Elton stuff, Who live at Leeds, Kiss Alive, and then, Johnny Cash, Folsom, right?
I know.
Folsom Prison album.
You know what?
Great album.
I almost put that on my list, but I wasn't sure if it was hip enough. So, but
I don't know how hip this list was all anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. Mine's pretty dated, but a lot of mine were ones that I personally connected to or listened to a lot. and they kind of go against some of the critics list, and some of them are on the critics list. So, but it's a fun conversation. And now that we're not doing concerts, listening to these live albums and watching live performances really kind of take care of some of that need for live performance, I think.
Absolutely. And if anybody has any great suggestions of other live albums that we maybe didn't mention, please feel free to comment below and share those, because we're always looking for new music to discover. Hey, before we let you go, I do,
I'm sure ELO's live album is amazing too.
Oh, yes. I mean,
I was going to say ELO's live album is really great too.
One thing I wanted to mention before I go, we like to mention a little community thing all the time, and the City of Columbus announced the COVID CareLine. Now, this is a new toll-free number, an emotional support call service for people from the Ohio Department of Mental Health. So if you have somebody who needs maybe a little confidential support and going through some personal crisis, struggling to cope, if you have one of those friends that you're just not sure how to help, or maybe you need somebody to talk to, it's real easy. It's confidential, and the number to call is 1-800-720-9616. That's 1-800-720-9616.
Yeah, that's very good. We kind of joke in the beginning about how we're doing or hanging in there. You're doing that, but we're in our homes with our families. And
Jules, the arena dog.
Arena dog, yeah. And we're doing okay, but we really need to remember there are a lot of people out there who have challenges through needs like this. So, we really need to think about them during these times.
For sure. Hey, Arena Guy, before I let you go, where can people follow you? Where can they find out what you're doing through the week?
All right. Facebook, just look under The Arena Guy. Twitter and Instagram @_The Arena Guy. And you know what? If you want to listen to some more fun conversation, we've got a catalog of Arena Guy Backstage Pass podcasts with Gary the Arena Guy and Dave Rettelberger. And some of those are great, and we can't wait to resume those. And this, in a way, is kind of replacing those for the time being, but look forward to getting back with our podcast as well. So check that out on wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, that'd be some great fun stuff there too. And don't forget, you follow the Schottenstein Center and Nationwide Arena for the latest news on all our events, and can't wait to have some great news to share. So Arena Guy, as always, a pleasure talking to you.
Can't wait. And we'll see you next week.